totally wasting our time. But we didn't let that stop us. We started initially giving out money from our own pocket, $1,000 to students starting in the 4th grade for superior academic performance and demonstration of humanitarian qualities. They had to show they cared about other people too. Because we didn't want people who were just smart. Kenneth Lay is smart. No, he's not smart. Hitler was smart, but they didn't do good things. So you need to be smart and caring. And they give $1,000. It goes to a trust fund. It's developed by our financial people. They get a statement each year in terms of how much it's worth. The school gets a trophy. Every bit as impressive as any sports trophy you've ever seen anywhere. They get a medal to wear. They go to a banquet. They get local press attention. And they begin to believe that they're world beaters. It's amazing some of the things that they've gone on to do. But more importantly, the other students can see them as being cool rather than as being nerds and geeks. You give a 4th grader or a 5th grader a $1,000 scholarship and they are cool all of a sudden. And we find so many of the other students who are now trying. And we now have over 1,400 scholars in 9 states, and we're moving into a few more states this year. And it's my hope that by the time I die, we'll be in every school system in the country, and that every 4th and 5th grader in the United States will realize that they can get just as much recognition from academic performance and humanitarian qualities as they can from shooting a basketball. And that's the kind of thing that will begin to change our nation, starting in the grassroots, starting with the young people, creating new ideals. And we do need volunteers. Anybody wants to volunteer? CarsonScholars.org. We need you. But, you would have thought that having turned things around academically and understanding academics, life was going to be wonderful for me. But see, I had another problem. I had a terrible temper. I was one of those people who thought they had a lot of rights. You ever meet anybody like that? The more rights a person thinks they have, the more likely someone is to infringe upon them. So people were constantly infringing upon my rights. I remember once a fellow hit me with a pebble. It didn't hurt, but I was incensed that he would dare hit me. But I could my privilege face, broke his glasses, almost put his eye out. Another time a fellow was trying to close my locker at school. I didn't want to close. I struck him in the forehead with my fist. Unfortunately, still had the lock in my hand. Put a 3-inch gash in his forehead. I almost got expelled for that one. My mother was trying to get me to wear something. I didn't want to wear it. I picked up a hammer, went to hit her in the head with it. Fortunately, my brother caught it from behind before it found its mark. Other than that, I was a pretty good kid. But you can see how that temper can really create problems for me. And when I was 14, I took a large camping knife and tried to stab him in the abdomen. Unfortunately, having a large metal belt buckle, the knife blade struck it with such force that it broke. And he fled in terror. But I was more terrified than he as I recognized that I was trying to kill somebody over nothing. I locked myself in the bathroom and started contemplating that. And a number of years ago when I was in San Quentin as a speaker, I looked out over all those hardened faces. And, I recognized that except for the grace of God, any one of those people could have been. Except for the grace of God, any one of those people could be any one of us at any time. Circumstances, you get in an accident and you start discussing something and you get into an altercation and an accident occurs and you end up in jail. You're trying to defend yourself from an abusive partner. And an accident occurs and it's misinterpreted. All kinds of things can happen. So, if our circumstances are good, we should never adopt a superior attitude. We should adopt a thankful attitude. We should be very happy that things are working out for us well. And we should be very willing, as everyone is here today, to come out and support people who perhaps are on the other side. Because we need to recognize as a society that anybody in our society who is not productive and who is not contributing is a drag on our society. And we need to be doing everything that we possibly can to create opportunities for people, rather than just putting them out of sight. Consider the fact that the prison industry is the fastest growing industry in our country. The United States, land of the free, home of the brave, fastest growing thing is the prison industry. How can we be in any way satisfied with ourselves as a society when we know that that's happening? Just because we're not spending time with those individuals, just because we're not seeing them out of sight, out of mind. And of course, the people who are most likely to be in those prisons, young black males. Now, some people say, I don't know any young black males, it's not my problem. I would beg to differ, because, for every one of those youngsters that goes on that path of self-destruction, and everyone that we can keep from going down that path, that's one less person we have to be afraid of or protect our families from. One less person we have to pay for in the penal or the welfare system. One more tax-paying, productive member of society who might discover a cure for cancer or AIDS. There's no one that we can afford to throw away. And it costs a great deal more to put them in the penitentiary than it does to create programs at the beginning of life that will keep them out. So, we have got to change our thinking as a society. That's just one segment of our society. There are multiple segments of our society that become incapacitated. Many of the abused women have families, young children. It's easy to shuffle them into the background. But we need to recognize that if we can create circumstances whereby they can become productive and whereby they can develop a positive image of themselves, then that is changed to the children also. And we begin to have intergenerational improvements. Those are the ways that we have to think as a society if we want to change what's going on. Well, you'd have thought that understanding all that, and first of all, I'm still sitting there in the bathroom with that temper, and realizing that my dream of becoming a physician was rapidly going out the window. Because I knew that my options were great. None of those options appealed to me. So I fell on my knees and I just prayed. I said, Lord, you got to help me. I can't control it. I've tried everything. I just can't do it. And there was a Bible there, and I picked it up, and I opened it up to the book of Proverbs. And there were all these verses in there about anger. Like Proverbs 19:19, it says there's no point getting an angry man out of trouble, because he's just going to get right back into it. Proverbs 16:32, it says, mightier is the man who can control his temper than the man who can conquer his city. It seemed like they were all written for me, and I stayed there for 3 hours reading and contemplating and praying. And when I came out of that bathroom, that temper was gone. I've never had another problem with it since that day. But one of the things I came to realize while I was there is that if you take yourself out of the center of the equation, then everything is not directed at you. And then you can step out of the equation and begin to look at things from other people's points of view. And that, for instance, is why I didn't get upset when I came to the floor and someone said, Mr. Trump's not going to take to the OR. Because I could step out of the center of the equation and I could look at things from other people's points of view. It makes a huge, huge difference in what happens. Well, when I went to high school, with all this new perspective, I ran into the worst thing a high school student will ever see. It's called peers. Negative peers. P-E-E-R-S. It stands for people who encourage errors, rudeness, and stupidity. And, that's exactly what they were doing, telling me what kind of clothes I had to wear, who I need to hang out with. And I got involved in all of that stuff, and my grades started going down. I wanted to be cool. And, it's interesting. In high school, you can always tell the difference between the cool guys and the nerds. The cool guys, they have all the latest fashions. They know all the cool movies and the tunes on the radio. And they even have a car, 3 chicks on each arm. I mean, they are just beyond belief cool. And then there's the nerd. You know, his clothes are clean, books, big glasses. None of the girls want to be seen talking to him. But funny thing happens. A few years go by, they graduate from high school. Now, the cool guy gets a job flipping hamburgers. He's cool though. The nerd has won a scholarship. Goes off to Johns Hopkins, and you know, a few more years go by. Cool guy still flipping burgers, but he's cool. The nerd, graduating, Fortune 500 contract, gets a big signing bonus. First thing he does, goes to the eye doctor, gets rid of those big glasses. Next stop, he goes to the tailor, gets himself a nice set of clothes. Next stop, automobile dealer, nice Lexus. Now the young ladies are saying, don't I know you? When I talk to the guy at McDonald's, but what am I talking about? Delayed gratification. But you know, the other thing I'm talking about here is, how did we create all those cool guys? That cool guy mentality. You know, I'll tell you something interesting. Sometimes I hear young ladies saying to me, young women now, they go to college at greater numbers than men do, and we're having trouble finding guys who, you know, have the same intellect, the same academic accomplishments, particularly the case in the African-American community. And I have to say, when you were in high school, whose arm were you hanging on? Was it the cool guy or was it the nerd? And they have to admit that it was the cool guy. And I said, you know something? People say that this is a man's world. But it really is not a man's world. It hasn't been a man's world since there was a woman. Because you think about it, Adam didn't want to eat that fruit. You know, think about it. Who made him eat the fruit? And then Samson, the strongest man who ever lived, who made him into a total fool? You know, Delilah, a woman. And you can go right down history, Anthony, Petra, anywhere along the spectrum. And the fact of the matter is, women, you know, guys are easy to manipulate, you know, and women make them jump through hoops. So I just say to the young ladies, make sure you make them jump through hoops. And then we began to change a little bit of that psyche. And, you know, I think that's something that people should begin to teach their daughters early in life. You know, tell the guy that maybe is studying a little harder, being a little more gentlemanly, he's going to jump out with. And you'll see a pretty rapid change. There is nothing that can come back and bite you. You tend to be much more courageous about everything when there's nothing to hide. And honesty pays. You know, I remember when I was in college, one time I was flat broke, I had no money, and I was praying, I said, Lord, you gotta give me some money. I got not even enough money, rough bus fare to get to church. And I was walking over by the Tell Chapel on the campus of Yale University, and I looked down at the bike rack, there was a $10 bill on the ground. I said, praise the Lord, that was wonderful. Well, about a year later, I was flat broke again. I said, Lord, you gotta give me some money. So I walked over by the back bike rack at the Tell Chapel. There was no money. But then we had had a final of one of my psychology courses, and an article had come out in the school paper that night saying all of the exams had inadvertently been incinerated, and that we had to go back and retake the exam. So everybody dutifully showed up the next day, but it was a different exam, and it was incredibly difficult. Each question had some element of familiarity in it, so you would think you should know the answer, but nobody knew the answers. So the teacher had left, and people started filtering out of the room. They were going to say they didn't see the notice, and hopefully they could phone up on this. Pretty soon there were only 25. I looked up, I was the only person left. The door opened, then came a professor, a photographer from the newspaper, to take the picture of the most honest student in the class. It was an experiment, and to give me a $10 bill. So honesty does pay. It makes a big difference. And you know, a few years ago I was operating, and I got a call from one of the university attorneys, and they said the state of Florida was trying to attach my wages for child support. And I said, what? I said, I have children and I support them very well. And they said, no, there's a woman in Florida, she says that you are the father of her son. And she's got proof. She knows where you went to high school, college, medical school, internship, and residency. She's even got a picture of you in Scrubs that came out of a magazine. I said, that's public information. Anybody could know that. And nevertheless, they pursued this. I had to get my attorney involved. It escalated. And they said if I sent them a blood sample, they could do DNA testing, and we could resolve the whole thing. And I said, wait a minute. You people, as incompetent as you are, want me to send you a specimen of my blood. I said, it'll end up in a murder scene. I'll be in jail for the rest of my life. I said, there's no way you're getting my blood. So it continued to escalate, and then it just fizzled out and died. Because I said my ground. There was no way I was going to give in. But why did I not give in? Because I knew that in my entire life, I'd only slept with one woman, and that was my wife. And I didn't have to scratch my head and say, was there a Saturday night episode or one night stand somewhere? I didn't have to go through all that. And see, that's what those paternity suits depend on. It said, this guy is traveling all the time, he's in hotels, he's at affairs, he's probably done some stuff, he won't even remember all the things he's done, so he's going to ante up. Well, that's what I'm talking about. If you don't have those things in your closet, then those things can't come back out. And it makes it very easy to be bold and to go for it without waiting for that tap on your shoulder. And I think it makes all the difference in the world. Well, you know, best worst analysis you have to be able to do. What do I mean by that? When you're ready to take a risk, you're ready to go out into uncharted territory. You're going to be ridiculed. You don't know what's going to happen. Well, you know, some years ago, there was a child, this is the last story I'm going to tell you, from New Mexico, in status epilepticus, constant seizures. She was on a respirator, she couldn't breathe, she couldn't move one side, 12 months. No one thought there was anything that could be done. Many consultants had been queried from across the nation. The mother had heard about some of the work we were doing here with a procedure called cerebral hysterectomy, where we take out half the brain to stop intractable seizures. Well, she called us. We made arrangements to have the child flown up, evaluate her. Some of us felt she was a good candidate for that operation. There was one very well-known neurologist who said, absolutely not. He wrote letters to the departmental directors, the president of the hospital, and the dean. Can't let CARSON operate on this kid. It will look like we're loose cannons. Then he made a mistake. He went to a conference in Rome and left the patient there. I said, this is our big opportunity. So he took the patient to the operator, took out the left half of her brain. When he came back, just off the respirator, not having seizures, made a wonderful recovery. He never had anything negative to say again after that. But why was I willing to take that kind of risk? First of all, I got to tell you, I have tremendous faith in God. And I never think he would get me into anything he can't get me out of. But secondly, I do something called source analysis. I said, what's the best thing that can happen if I do nothing? What's the worst thing that happens if I do nothing? What's the best thing that happens if I do something? What's the worst thing that happens if I do something? And when I looked at the answers to that, there was only one thing that would allow her to have anything that resembled a quality life. So as far as I was concerned, there was no choice in the matter. Doesn't make me into a wild and radical person. I think it makes me a very conservative person. But in any circumstance in life, one has to be able to do that best-worst analysis. You're in an abusive situation, best-worst analysis will give you a very good answer to what to do about that situation and virtually any other circumstance in life. It's all in the world. My philosophy for success in life applies to virtually everybody, not just in medicine, and that is to think big. The T is for talent, which God gave to every single person, not just the ability to sing and dance, throw balls. I don't have anything against sports entertainment. I love sports entertainment. You know, I'm actually working with Tony Dungy right now on bringing our scholarship program to Indiana. And, you know, as many of you know, I made a cameo appearance in a Hollywood movie last year, you know, as a surgeon separating, you know, Siamese twins. So I don't have anything against sports, entertainment. I just believe that we need to begin to reward academic talent if we don't want to go the same direction as all the other pinnacle nations that preceded us. The H is for honesty, lead a clean and honest life. And if you always tell the truth, you don't have to try to remember what you said 3 months ago. The I is for insight, which comes from listening to people who've already gone where you're trying to go. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. The It is for nice. Be nice to people, because once they get over their suspicion, why you be nice? They'll be nice to you. You can get so much more done that way. The K is for knowledge, which is the thing that makes you into a more valuable person. Do I have a big house? Yes. Do I have a lot of cars? Yes, I grew up in Detroit, I like cars. All the things about ambitions are important, of course. Are they important? Of course, they mean nothing if they all disappear tomorrow. I really don't care, because I can get them all right back almost immediately with what's up here, or at least I could before managed care. And that's what Solomon meant when he said, gold, silver, and rubies are nice, but be treasured far above those things, knowledge and understanding. Because with those, he knew you could get all the gold and silver, rubies you want, and more importantly, you come to understand they don't amount to a hill of beans. And the most important thing is developing your talents to the point where you become valuable to the people around you. The B is for books, which is the mechanism for obtaining that knowledge. And your mother couldn't read when we were growing up. She did eventually teach herself to read, got her GED, went on to college in 1994, got an honorary doctorate degree, so she's Dr. CARSON now. So, second I is for in-depth learning, say knowledge understanding, as opposed to superficial learning, which is why we ranked number 21 out of 22. We have to change that. And the last letter, G, is for God. We live in a society that is trying to extract God. Lawyers came to me a few years ago and said, you can't put your think big banners up in public schools because the G stands for God. And the First Amendment says there could be no state-sponsored religion. Well, I reminded them that the First Amendment also said there can be no government suppression of religious expression. So we had a rather vigorous argument, and I suggested that we resolve it at the level of the Supreme Court. Now, does that seem like a bold and audacious statement? It wasn't, actually, because I knew the next week I was going to the Supreme Court to receive the Jefferson Award. So I figured I would ask while I was there. And Justice Sandra Day O'Connor said they were all wet. They had no concept of what separation of church and state meant. She explained it and said, of course you could put that up in a public school and have no bearing on anything. And people who say silly stuff like that, do they understand that our Declaration of Independence talks about certain equal rights that our Creator, aka God endowed, that our pledge says we are one nation under God. Most courtrooms in the land on the wall, it says, in God we trust. Every coin in our pocket, every bill in our wallet says, in God we trust. So if our finding documents, it's in our pledge, it's in our courts, and it's on our money. But we're not supposed to talk about it. What in the world is that? In medicine, we call it schizophrenia. Doesn't that explain a lot of what goes on in our society today? We need to make it perfectly clear that it's okay to live by godly principles of loving your fellow man, caring about your neighbor, of developing your God-given talents to the utmost so that you become valuable to the people around you, of having values, principles, and standing for something. And if we do that, we truly will have one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Thank you.